Welcome to the Business Revolution podcast. Now, these podcasts are just the things that we love doing at Tetrarchy because we get to chat to just incredible people. We get to chat to people whose books we've read. We get to chat to people who we've heard speak. We get to chat to people who have written courses or launched business that just blow our minds. And today we're going to speak to someone who's blown my mind, but at a slightly different level and also over a slightly different time frame. But before I introduce to you our guest for this edition, the Business Revolution podcast is brought to you by the Business Secrets Club, which is Tetrarchy's flagship product where we offer free business coaching online 5 days a week, access to the members area 24/7, daily coaching sessions across marketing, sales, people, tools and techniques, finance, you name it. We help you on your growing your business and your life. But this episode of the Business Revolution is one I don't know if I'm more nervous or more relaxed. And I have to say that both of us have agreed that we're going to do this podcast with a beer in our hands, because it's not every day you are able to have a chat, have a conversation with a revolutionary who you've also spent 34 years of your life with. And that's who we're talking today. So I am so proud to introduce today's guest, which is my cousin, Ollie Clark. So welcome, Ollie, to
Brilliant.
the
Thank you,
podcast.
Mark. And I'm pretty honoured to be interviewed on this on the Business Revolutions. I'm pretty over the moon. But thanks for the invite.
Now, and ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to look at this and you're going to go, I can't believe they're interviewing family members. But you wait till you hear the story. Now, Ollie has got a story that is jaw-dropping. So the reason why I want to chat to Ollie, not only because I love catching up with my cousin, but Ollie has a story which is fascinating. Now, I showed my son tonight as I said I'm going to chat to Ollie tonight, and he goes, "What are we going to look at?" I said, "Come and look at this map." And then on the map, it's full of blue, and the blue represents the ocean. He was pointing to one part of the ocean which was massive, and I was like, he's like, "Daddy, what is that part of blueness?" And I said, "That's called the Atlantic Ocean." And he was like, "My gosh, that is so big." And I was like, "Yep." And you'll never guess, Ollie has rowed across the Atlantic. So first thing, Ollie, I am just, as I said, you did it, just complete awe of the stupidity that luckily I didn't get that gene to decide to row across the Atlantic, but to achieve what you did is absolutely incredible. So firstly, massive congrats to row across the Atlantic.
Yeah, it was quite an exciting adventure, and something I look back fondly of. I kind of forget about it, to be honest. And just before this interview, I had to have a quick read of a couple of blogs to bring myself back into the zone and realise the excitement I felt, the nervousness throughout it. So sort of keyed back in now. I kind of remember what it was all about and kind of the reasons why I decided to do it. And I did it with a close friend. So brought back some nice memories, which hopefully I can sort of talk to you about, and I can learn a bit more about expressing my thoughts, and we'll go from there.
Cool. So let's start actually at the end. Let's start with how you felt, because it's always a good thing when it's been a bit of time since you've done it. You've got your land legs back now. So when you went and read those blogs again and sort of reminded yourself, what was the first real emotion that you felt when you read the blogs again?
And I suppose an element of pride of getting it done, an element of nostalgia, an element of, an aspect of missing that, it sounds a bit cheesy, but a bit of freeness, of nothing to worry about but you, your mate, and just going from A to B. All you've really got to worry about is eating, drinking, and rowing hard, watching fantastic sunsets every night, sunrises every morning, sort of looking out for fantastic sort of sea beasts that might bump into your boat now and again. So it's and the excitement of catching quite large sort of Atlantic waves that roll from Antigua, or also from the Canary Islands to Antigua, and hopefully catch a bit more speed. So yeah, it brought back some nice memories, certainly.
It's interesting how all your descriptions there are very, very positive, and you almost describe it as you were just rowing across a lake where the sun sets and stuff, not where you were and sort of massive waves and boats and being stuck so far away from any kind of real support. So it's incredible how, as human beings, as we look back at past experiences, we probably remember more about the elation of arriving and the happy things, and we actually sometimes forget about the challenges that you face, not only just to get the boat in the water, but also during the row. But first of all, just tell people, how long did it take you to row across one of the biggest stretches of water?
Yeah, again, I almost forgot this, so I had to have a look, but it was 42 days, 17 hours and 59 minutes. So yeah, it was a good solid month and a bit of rowing. It felt, well, I mean, on the grand scale of things, it's not long, and considering it took 2 years of campaigning, raising funds and training to get there, it was actually over in the blink of an eye, really. So looking back, it went quicker than I expected.
And finished as a record
holder.
Not
quite, no. So we won our category. So we beat the other pairs teams. We came third overall with two other teams that were teams of 4 beating us, but we were frustratingly short by the record at the time by 2 days, 2.5 days, and we got stuck in a hurricane for 2.5 days. So had that not got in our way, maybe we would have been a bit closer. But c'est la vie, you can't change the elements, and I think our getting to the other side safely was the next best thing.
That's about stuck in a hurricane, just like a nonchalant comment made. Stuck in a hurricane in a tiny little rowing boat. I just want to go back as well, because it's one thing that we talk quite a lot about, and there are things where individuals and people have dreams and aspirations, but we do find that there's a small percentage like you who actually stick at it. There's a significant number of people who, when the going gets tough or something doesn't quite go their way, they bail. And as you said, 2 years of planning, training, raising funds, while obviously you're still a very senior officer in the British Army and juggling all that. First of all, let's go back to the start and say, how many tequilas did you have before you decided to do the race?
I'd like to say there wasn't drink involved, but there was.
All good stories start with drink.
My good friend Dan, who I've known for quite a while from university, again in a pub. We had some good friends that had actually done it 2 years before, or just shy, and we were watching them through, and we were pretty inspired by them. And he asked the question, said, "Do you fancy doing this?" And I, without sort of hesitation, said, "Yep." And at that point, I sort of gave him my word, so I couldn't really turn back on my word. So we started the planning from there, and as soon as you get it into the public domain, again, you couldn't turn back on your word, and the ball was rolling. So went with the momentum and just stuck with it, really. And to thanks to friends and family, they supported us, which meant that there was no get out options, and we had a lot of people who invested in it. So for me, I didn't want to let people down, and secondly, the opportunity to have a fantastic story and learn about, I suppose, learn about friendship, teams, adventure, excitement, sports, and what the body and mind can do were the exciting aspects that I wanted to explore.
Now, I can't wait to touch on those later around the mental part of the row. But so you wake up in the morning with a bit of a hangover, then you got reminded of the promises you made after your second or third Stella. What was the first thing that you started to plan? How did you go about something like this?
So I suppose immediately you think, right, well, I best start physically training, but that was probably the wrong way about it. It was more about the getting to the start line with a boat, in short. And we sat back and thought of what we wanted to achieve. Firstly, what we wanted to do it for, which were for two charities, because we wanted to, if we're going to do an adventure and people are going to support us, we might as well try and contribute to charities that are close to our hearts. So we chose charities which sort of, my side was the Army Benevolent Fund, the Soldiers Charity. And then the other one was prostate cancer, who's through Dan. So his father had prostate cancer a while back. He's fine now, thankfully. So we had our two charities, which gave us an additional goal to the side of achieving a physical and mental adventure in the support of the charity. So we chose those. And then I suppose we just had we drew in some close friends and family as a bit of a team, because it's too much for one or two people to raise approximately £110,000 to get to the start line, and then of which 90,000 plus went to charity. So to generate that, whilst mentally and physically preparing ourselves, it required a bit of planning to get there. So drawing the team together, and then we sort of set up bits of timelines, sort of areas we wanted to hit, where we wanted to be, decided which boat to go for, spoke to friends the couple of friends that have done it, spoke to the organisers of the events, and sort of once we put our name on the dotted line to say we were firmly in, and it just broke down the task into bits and gradually got there. And it was hard at times, and I suppose if it was easy, everyone would do it. Was the sort of the mantra we looked at.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously you and Dan, as I said, you're in the Army and have a very significant role in the Army, and Dan works as well. How did you manage to juggle the journey, the training, and looking after your soldiers and keeping your bosses happy?
To be honest with it, just a lot of hard work, balancing, planning, so you didn't double book yourself, but ultimately it was putting in the hours. I would have, so I mean, a typical week might be, so I was living in London for the week. Sorry, working in Devon, living in London at the weekends. So I'd weekly commute. So Monday I would get up at 3:30, get into work, say for 7. Well, get into camp at 7, 7:30. Try and do a bit of gym then do work till 7, bit of dinner, back into work until 9, 10 o'clock. And then from there, go back to my room and do either go to the gym or go to back to my room and do some row admin until 12, 1 o'clock. And that was the sort of perpetual weekday program, really. Something similar. So a bit of gym once or twice a day, and then evening work would be doing some administration for the row, planning, getting sponsorship, etc.
And it's and again, what you're articulating is something that you've talked about your word, and you talked about something that, obviously, knowing you as well as I know you, in terms of you're always up for adventures and the opportunities to grow yourself. But unless you love something, it's very difficult to put that work commitment and that effort into something.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I've never done any water rowing before, so I didn't know my love of rowing per se. I had the love of doing something different and a bit of excitement and excitement of the unknown, certainly. And work-wise, certainly enjoying my job in the military. At the time, it's part of a commando engineer unit, who are a fantastic bunch that I have great ties with, and wanted to ensure that I did a half decent job for the unit. So balancing that required a bit of work, but it's part of the parcel.
Yeah. So that the 2 years where from the moment that you said yes to getting on the water in the Canaries, moments there when you were like going, oh my gosh, this is just a bit too much, or I'm not sure if I can do this. Like, obviously you're lucky you had a very supportive now wife who was looking after you as well. But were there moments where you were just like, what have I done? How do I get out of this
Oh yeah,
at all?
regularly when after a long day when you'd had a rejection for a sponsorship sort of deal you sort of pitch for, to weekends, so I wouldn't see Abby, my wife, till the weekends, and then it would be a weekend or two taken away because I would have to go take the boat out towards the tail end and go do some training or do a course to ensure that we were safe on the water. So it took its toll on relationships with friends and family, but yeah, thankfully they were supportive and understood the sort of passion Dan and I had for it and jumped on board, if you excuse the pun. But yeah, they were wholly supportive. But there were certainly times when you thought, well, are we actually going to get to the start line? Are we actually going to achieve this within the timelines? And yeah, it was touch and go. But yeah, thankfully we got there.
So out of interest as well, because this is, again, a lot of entrepreneurs that we speak to in the Business Secrets Club, and they're talking around how do you deal with those down moments? What was it that was keeping you going, that when you were right at the edge where you were just like, my God, you're doing that commute again at 3:30 driving to Devon, and what was it that kept you going? What was that thing?
I suppose for me it was I had one eye on I guess crossing the finishing line and of doing the race, so crossing the finish line. And then the other aspect was certainly Dan and I were locked into this. We'd put a lot of people out and asked a lot of our friends and family to support, and we simply just didn't want to let people down. We'd not promised like money for charities, but we had to suggest we could provide money. We could suggest to sponsors that we could return some sort of publicity or exposure for our endeavours. So we certainly just didn't want to let people down, and we didn't want to let each other down. So I think that was quite a bit of a driving factor, a bit of loyalty and support for the wider team, that we simply just didn't want to fall down.
Yeah, that's two really good pieces of advice there. And the two things that for me are really, really incredible. What you said is you had one eye on the end goal, and so it's really important that we actually understand where we're heading, where's the destination we're going, but we also enjoy the journey. So that's the one thing. The second thing that you said was, by making a public commitment, it is a lot harder to get out of a public commitment. And that's something that we really encourage a lot of people, is to, if you've got dreams and aspirations, don't keep them to yourself. Share it with friends, relatives, loved ones, and let them support you on achieving your goals. Because I think, as you've said, if you wouldn't have had that support and love from all friends and family, it would have been a lot harder to get to that start line.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, exactly that.
So let's go forward now. So we're working towards the start line now, and I'm sure I want to spend some time actually on the race so you can tell some of the crazy stories about being stuck in the Atlantic. But I know you had a few training runs which didn't go as smoothly as you hoped. Any little adventures on that, just even before you started, that make you smile as you look back?
I suppose things like on the boat doing a little training trial on another boat, and almost loosely running aground on an overnight, and wondering whether we're going to have to be pulled in by the lifeguard. Thankfully, we just get out of it. Times when you've had a handshake from a sponsor and they promised you their support, and for 2 or 3 days later for them to whip it away. There were ups and downs with regards to those.
Okay, so let's go to the week, 10 days. So before the start, What was going through your head? What was the final parts of your preparation before you took to the water?
So thankfully, my work released myself, and likewise with Dan's work. We had to get to the Canary Islands, so La Gomera, 2 weeks before the start. So it was sort of mid-November when we arrived. So prior to that, it was just wrapping up what I could do for work to ensure that it ran as smoothly as possible to the guy that I handed over to. So I wasn't worried about that when I left. So once that was done, and we were final preparations for the boat, ensuring that we had everything we needed. So when we got to La Gomera, we could start getting our heads more into the mindset of actually doing the unknown at that point. We arrived, and it's a fantastic experience getting to La Gomera, because we had 26 other teams in our race, ranging from soloists, which is pretty bonkers, up to fours, and it's run by Talisker Whiskey Atlantic Challenge, the sort of campaign itself. And it's a great setup, so it's a really good environment, and generally all the people are like-minded. And we're all in the same sort of same pot with regards to not quite knowing what we're expecting, because it's a race. There's an element of competitiveness and people sizing each other up, but ultimately there's a huge amount of camaraderie for I guess the passion of what we're about to do, the excitement, and people on the same wavelength. So it was good to properly meet the other teams. And during that 2-week period, you go out and do some trials and tests, because the boat needs sort of configuring appropriately. You have your final checks from the safety team to ensure you've got your right beacons, you've got the prerequisite for the food, all your lines are correct, your radios are there, etc. So there's a good element of safety, along with briefs and media. So those 2 weeks were exciting. We had our family out, enjoying the sunshine in La Gomera. And once we got to the point that we were ready to go, and unfortunately there was a unfavourable sort of wind that was blowing in the wrong direction, so we wouldn't have got out of the harbour, let alone onto the Atlantic. So the start date got pushed to the right, so a little bit later, and our families left, which was a shame, because it would have been good to wave goodbye. But in the same vein, it gave us, Dan and I, a bit of opportunity, just the two of us, to sort of take stock and reaffirm what we wanted to achieve out of this with ourselves. So we set quite early. We said, with a bit of advice from other people, say, make sure between the two of you establish your goals, your end state, and what your objectives are. Because if you've got different agendas between you, the team, whether that be 2s, 3s, or 4s within the boat, then you're striving towards different goals. And if you're not on the same path, you're not putting in the same direction, literally. So we sort of had certain steps of goals that we wanted to achieve. First was pie in the sky, which was try and get a world record. Yeah, perfect. That would be a gold-plated solution. Secondly would be win the race. Third would be just get across. And they were sort of our goals. And across all of that, we wanted to maintain our friendship, which kind of jumped to the top of all of that as an important aspect, because in a small enclosed environment, when people are tired, if you don't keep your focus on important stuff such as friendship, then it can have a long-term effect on you. So we had those goals, and it was reaffirming those and just fine-tuning the boat, fine-tuning how we would do changes, fine-tuning our food, our regime, our rotors. So when we got to the water, it was second nature how we did business, and it would run smoother, and we could focus on the issues that would occur as opposed to focusing on the everyday straightforward aspect, which should be routine. So we could focus on the issues that might raise their heads. So that's run up to things.
Very cool. Oh, yeah. all coming up with your like what if scenarios.
Yeah.
So, just 'cause I think our listeners are now probably going, okay, there's two guys, and so we're both not small human beings. We're both about 6'4", 193 centimeters. You've got a little bit more muscle than I have. So do you want to just give the listeners a little bit of an overview of the boat in terms of the specs, how big it was, what you had on the boat for obviously rowing and sleeping, and just a little high-level overview of the supplies that you carried on there, and how long? I know you did it in 42 days, but how many days do you have your supplies for? Just a little bit of an overview of what you actually had in there.
So yeah, with the team that ran the campaign, there were pretty stringent rules of certain aspects on the boat for safety, and it was completely justified. So the boat itself, in the pairs, we had a Rannoch boat, which is a carbon fibre hull, and it's about 23 foot. So what's that? About 7 meters long. It's kind of shaped like a bit of a torpedo, and then with regards to width, it's probably, I don't know, 1.5 meters wide, I would say, gusting, a meter 75 wide. And then you've got two sort of slightly enclosed areas, one at the stern and one at the bow. So at the stern, so the front, you've got the larger capsule, which is where you would hunker down and you would sleep and look after your body and administer yourself. And then towards the bow, that would be, and then towards the stern, so the back of the boat, would be a smaller area where we had a sort of little bit of power generation. We had the steering, so the rudder in there, and a little bit of storage. And then sort of underneath the boat, the main body of it would be storage for food. So bits of kit, you had to have a couple of sets of spare oars because they have a tendency to break. We luckily didn't break any. So they would be sort of stuck to the sort of stanchions to hold on to. Then you would have your safety equipment, so flares, foghorns. You've got personal tracking beacons. You've got one for the boat. And then you've got a life raft. You have a water maker, a power system, a navigation system, and a VHF sort of radio system. To power this, we had solar panels, and then we also had sort of a METS-based power generation, which unfortunately broke halfway across. And then so that's the sort of the bulk infrastructure of the boat and some of the sort of hard elements that we bring. And then for us, we had food and personal clothing. So food-wise, we had to have I think it was 120 days, off the top of my head, of food. That's the worst case scenario, of which I think 20% had to be wet rations. So we had the majority of it. So the 80% was add water to sort of to rehydrate some food, and then the remainder was already hydrated. We went for, so that was, we had to have, by the book, have 4,500 calories, which we aimed for, and that we split between the daily main meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then snacks, which we could have throughout the day. We actually did a last minute change on a few things. So the wet rations, which we had sort of, curries, were actually pretty heavy. And we exchanged those for olive oil, in an olive oil bottle of a sort of 75 centilitres, about 9,000 calories, which you can drink, and it's good calories and will keep you going in a worst case scenario. But it's a lot lighter than the actual food themselves. So that's almost 2 days worth in a bottle of olive oil. So we exchanged those out to save a bit of weight so we could go faster. And similarly, we did with the med kit. We chopped our med kit down as small as possible, got rid of all wrappers, label stuff appropriately so we could understand what it's for. So that was the med side, and the food and snacks. We would have element of savoury, so pepperonis, and then into the less savoury, so flapjacks, chocolates. But there's a lot to be said about the nutritional aspects of this, because so you have something sweet, it picks you up for a moment, but then it might drop you off. So maintaining a level of savoury and was important, and high fat. So we had coconut oil to add to our meals, just to add a few more calories to it. We had a bit of protein with high elements of high calories, again, just to add a bit more to our daily intake, and for ease, because cooking a meal, or at least adding water to meals when you're bobbing around on large waves is trickier than you think.
So let's start talking about some of these trickier moments. And I'm also fascinated to know, I'm really interested in some of these stories about the tricky moments, but also how you and Dan actually managed the 24-hour cycles. So you got your rest, and also the fact that you were self-propelled. The moment either of you were not rowing, you were basically either standing still or going backwards. So let's chat a little bit about your daily routine, and then let's start having the bit that everyone wants to listen to, which is the scary stay-up stories.
So yeah, routine, pretty important, and different teams went for different approaches. So we went for a 2 hours on, 2 hours off, of throughout the day, throughout the night, so 24 hours, to which we got used to, but it's hard work. And after the first couple of days, you get into your routine. You get used to being woken up and not fully getting to sleep. But you say 2 hours, and everyone goes, "Oh, right, brilliant! That's 2 hours of sleep." It's not 2 hours of sleep, because there's a lot of other things to be done. So you'd get the knock when you're asleep for 10 minutes before, which would be, right, I've got to get up. I've got to get my clothes on. Maybe sort my body out, take on a bit of food, and get prepared to jump out, whether it's sort of rain or sunshine. And then you get a 5-minute knock, and you'd hope you haven't nodded back off, and then you would frantically get your clothes on. And then it would be, okay, 10 hard strokes, downward pull 10 hard strokes, just to get a bit of momentum, because it's easier to get the boat moving when it's moving, as opposed to from a standing start. And it would be a lean out of the cabin, a clip on, because we were always clipped on at night, for example. And then it would be a quick exchange, downward move to the stern of the boat, to the back of the boat. And I would jump on the oars to start rowing. Of which there would be a quick sort of handover, takeover. So we would have a chat, because if you're not careful, if you're 2 hours downstairs sorting stuff out, you don't see each other, you don't interact. So we take 10 minutes to have a chat, depending how we're feeling. Give a bit of it's a bit rocky out there, just be careful of this and this. Maybe grab a bit of food together, and then we go downstairs. This would be predominantly at night. And so from there would be time to sort your body out. So it'd be clean your sores. So clean your bum, because you're sat in your bum the whole time. Clean your hands, and any other sort of ailments you've got. Use alcohol spray, tends to be pretty good, and then some cream. And then once you've sort of fed, if you needed to, try and get some sleep. That would be nighttime, when you didn't have tasks to do. But in the daytime, you would aim to obviously get some sleep with what I've just mentioned, so a bit of body administration, but also you had boat tasks to do. So whether that be a bit of cleaning, because you can't go letting your sort of standards drop with regards to that, fixing stuff, making food for each other, producing water, depending whether that be by hand pump at certain points, or by the by the water maker itself, the electric water maker. And then we had things like blogging and writing emails and maintaining communications with family, an element of just making sure they know we're alive, and just keeping each other company as well. So before you know it, your daily 2 hours is actually an hour, if that. So it's not as much as you think. And that would be the general routine for 24 hours. But we did find it was quite interesting because we quickly recognised that Dan was probably better at night. He'd feel less tired at night, but he didn't fare very well in the heat of the day. Whereas I would, middle of the night, I would be sort of struggling. Whereas the middle of the day, I would be happy with the heat. So we sort of slightly altered the night, middle of the day patterns. I would take a longer stint during the middle of the day, and he would reciprocate that in the night, just to balance where our strengths were, really. So we would achieve a bit more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's another really, really cool point. Is while you said it was important to get a routine and build a routine into it, it's not being fixated by your original routine. It's looking at it and going, okay, this is a great foundational to start off, but let's be aware of each other. Let's understand our strengths. Let's leverage off what each of us are really, really good at for the betterment of the team. And that's something that's really, really important, that sometimes we just get either our ego takes over or our stubbornness takes over. And that's always at the detriment to the end goal.
And then there was an instance where Dan hurt his back, and his back was spasming, for example, and he was really struggling to row. To which I was like, look, Dan, you need to rest that. Otherwise, this was sort of, I don't know, a third the way across. Otherwise, if you don't rest that now, it's just going to get worse. So I took on a few extra shifts. But obviously for Dan, that was pretty distraughting because he didn't want to sort of let me down. He wanted to pull his weight because he's that kind of guy. But yeah, being a stubborn guy, wanted to carry on and do what he could. But once we sort of talked about it, and I said, look, I don't mind doing this. There might be a time when my back goes, or I have a bit of trouble where you need to take it on. But ultimately, when you're on the oars at the moment, it's not helping me, you, or the team. Let me do my bit. You relax and do what you need to do. And it took a little bit of time for him to realise that. And I would have been exactly the same if I was in his situation, being stubborn. But we finally came to the conclusion that that's the way it had to be for a day or so. And before we knew it, he was back on the oars and fully fit. So it paid off.
One thing I was, when I was keeping in touch with you during the row and stuff, and as I think about it, you've talked a little bit about you were better in the heat and Dan was better at night. But I always look at a few of the hikes I've done, or I've done some ones when I've gone into big 5 game reserves and we've done a 5-day hike and slept overnight. And when you're sleeping overnight in a big 5 game reserve where you're hearing all animals which can eat you quite quickly, and you're all doing turns. So one of the hikes, one of my favourite hikes, you during the night shift, you all do a night shift where you're walking around with your torch, keeping an eye on stuff. And sometimes I'm looking at it and going, I don't know which I prefer or least prefer. Do I like the daytime where I get to see everything, but I get to see everything that's out there or hear things that could get me? Or at night where if it's going to get me, it's going to be very, very quick, if that makes sense. How is it for you in the Atlantic where during the day you're rowing and you're looking across, seeing nothing, going, holy crap, I'm in the middle of the Atlantic, or at night where you're going, holy crap, I can see nothing?
Yeah, so we talked about this a bit on the boat. It was quite surreal because once you're 12 nautical miles pretty much off landmass, you can't actually see anything. So for us, we never really sort of grasped the magnitude of how far we were, apart from when we looked on a map or we looked at our sort of GPS, then it would sort of come to the fore. But to us, we could have been 12 miles away, and that's kind of what we looked at. And with regards to seeing stuff in the day, we would you'd think, oh, it's just seeing it's flat as a pancake, or flat as a pancake, or it's wavy. But the skyscape was pretty impressive. So you would go down, get a bit of kip, come back up, and before you knew it, it was a completely different environment. So it would go from bright, clear blue skies to pretty dismal conditions where it would be grey, foggy. So the environment would change vastly. But at night was probably the more disconcerting of times, in that you would, don't get me wrong, there were fantastic starry nights and the moon was out and you could see a bit, but when the moon wasn't out and it was a bit cloudy, you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. So, and you would have a glimpse at the end of the boat of the compass as a bit of perspective, but you wouldn't know exactly which direction you were going in, unless the numbers on the compass. You couldn't sometimes tell which is up or down when you were going down a wave or sort of up a wave. If that makes sense. And if the waves were big, you couldn't tell that they were about to hit you, less the noise. And what was quite spectacular was the phosphorescence. So at nights when it was flat and calm and you were moving yourself under your own steam, the oar strokes and the bow of the boat would sort of have swirls of phosphorescence that would sort of glisten past your boat as you move forward, which was pretty magical. But on the flip side, when there were big waves, you knew a big wave was coming in the night, because as the wave broke, it would start sparkling. So it looks magical. It's sort of so they were the sort of disconcerting bits of night, where you wouldn't know exactly where, what, or how you're going places, but you kind of got used to it, that uncomfortable nature, and it kind of became a bit more normal. So yeah, that's kind of how we dealt with it.
So let's talk about the waves, because you had one or two incidents with waves across the small row. Do you want to share a couple of stories?
Yeah, sure. So for the row, generally the winds are going in the right direction for the row. So from sort of Africa over to the Americas. So generally you're going in the right direction with the winds, and similarly with the waves. So waves, if they're going in your direction, are your friends, because you can generate power and you can surf the waves. But when there's unfavorable conditions or a localized storm, then it could be all over the shop. So we would regularly try and catch waves. So we would try and both of us get on the oars if we're feeling strong, and sort of push hard to catch a wave to then generate a bit more speed. So our speed wise would be between 2 to 3 knots when we're rowing individually, again conditions based, and then sort of 2.5 to 3.5, 4 when we were rowing together. So not a massive amount of difference for two people's efforts really. But when we could catch waves, and the winds were going in the right direction, we could be sitting at 5 knots quite happily. And we caught a few waves where they were sort of felt like they were towering above us, and we got up to sort of 18 knots, 20 knots almost, which was pretty exhilarating when you're riding down a wave and the sort of whitewash is coming up the side of the boat. So it was fantastic. But we had I suppose the main incident was when we capsized. So we were, again, the conditions were loosely going with us, but we had a few rogue waves that would come in from the side now and again. And our original route, we didn't go as south as many of the other people. We were going with the waves. So later on, it kind of came back to bite us a bit. And ultimately, I was rowing. Dan was downstairs, and I caught a wave. Sort of rowed hard to try and get it, and just a larger one came in from the side, and and I didn't get a chance to turn to sort of counter it, and it sort of knocked us over. It wasn't, I mean, thankfully we didn't go end over end, which people have done. But we rolled over. I got chucked into the water, and thankfully we decided, because of the conditions, we were properly tied on. So in I went. Boat came over, and because they self-right, so as I sort of came out, the boat was there, and it popped back over. Thankfully we tied a lot of stuff on, but one of the leashes broke, so we lost a rowing seat, which was pretty frustrating. And obviously hopped back on, annoyed with myself that I didn't manage to get it correct. First thought was, is Dan all right? We sort of confirmed that everyone was all right. Dan had been downstairs probably having some food, and I think ended up being effectively in a bit of a washing machine with stuff that maybe wasn't tied down in the cabin, getting chucked around. So bits of beef jerky all over. And also we had the hatch shut, but there's sort of two layers again, but fully shut, but it's pretty unbearable temperatures when you do that, or sort of half shut, which meant that water, a bit of ingress of water, which required bailing out and making sure it didn't get near the electric. So we were pretty lucky. We could have been a bit tighter on things, but all in all, we came out pretty unscathed, it was quite exhilarating. And there's certainly when I fell in, the enormity of where I was sort of struck me in that. You realise then you're not 12 nautical miles from land, and if you were to get disconnected to the boat, that there's not much chance you're going to get back to the boat, because the boat gets taken by the wind at a quicker speed than the wind resistance on your head, if that makes sense. So you get whisked away very quickly, which came home when we arrived in Antigua, and we heard that one guy got swept off, not a boat from the 26 teams that were in the race, but from another, and he wasn't found. So it brought it sort of steaming home, and that we've got to make sure we're clipped on, which we did. So that was probably the most exciting of waves, less the sort of hurricane side of things.
Yeah, your definition of excitement and other people's definition of excitement. I don't think there'll be many of our listeners who will be going, I would use the word excitement and capsizing in the middle of the Atlantic in a rowing boat. I don't think they would be using that.
It's easy to say it now, though, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. So let's keep moving forward. So being stuck in a hurricane, that must have been a completely surreal experience.
So we had sort of weather forecasters. We got a bit of information from back home saying, this is coming, likely wind speeds, direction, so we could loosely plot where we want to go, or at least try and avoid stuff. But when you're traveling 2 to 3 knots, you can't avoid vast sort of weather systems. So we knew something was coming our way. And surprisingly, just prior to when the hurricane came through, which surprisingly was the earliest hurricane they'd had in years, since 73 or something, which was just our luck. It was blue skies. We were rowing, and then it came to a head that we both were on the oars, and we couldn't row against the wind anymore. So we sort of effectively said, that's it. Let's put our power anchor out, which is effectively a parachute that you chuck in the water, and it slows your movement in the wrong direction. So it kind of keeps you broadly in the same position. I'd say broadly, but it moves you less quickly in the wrong direction. So we chucked that in, and we kind of took it as a bit of an opportunity to wrestle if on the conditions. So to start, it was relatively pleasant, actually. The blue skies, bit of wind. I started reading my book, and we took some food on. We called a couple of people just to say, we're expecting a hurricane, but So it was pretty surreal. But then it gradually picked up. I mean, prior to that, we had a weather system that we had to put the power anchor out, and we both attempted to sort of batten down the hatches and get down into the cabin and try and get some sleep. But yeah, it wasn't pleasant. There were two of us, it's a small cabin, relatively big blokes, and we just decided for the second run of things that one of us would stay on deck for, I suppose, two reasons. One, to allow the person inside to get a bit of sleep, and secondly, to sort of monitor the conditions, look out for boats, so tankers and stuff, to see if there was a window of opportunity we could pull the anchor back in and get rowing, because we didn't want to miss any chance to actually be going in the right direction under our own steam. So gradually the hurricane sort of picked up, waves got bigger and they came from sort of different directions. And we kind of made a bit of an error in that once you're on your power anchor, the concept is you go up and down the waves in the sort of with the least resistance. So along the length of the boat, you go up and down the waves, so you're not getting broadsided. And to achieve that, you've got to lock in your rudder. So your rudder's got to stay true to the boat, so in line with the boat. But we didn't fully lock it in, or it popped out or something of the sort, which resulted in the rudder breaking. So the rudder arm that attached to the top of the rudder, it broke. So come the morning, we'd had a horrendous night where we couldn't quite work it out what was happening, and we were swinging from side to side, getting broadsided by the waves. So suppose going up and down nicely, we were swinging and getting hit by the waves on the side, which resulted in the whole night almost toppling over several times, sort of teetering on the verge of grasping everything, expecting to roll over, to then sort of almost go over and then self-right. And so that was a pretty interesting night. And we got to the morning and we realised that we'd broken.
Yeah. Interesting.
And we got to the morning and pretty disappointed to see the broken rudder. And while this was all playing out, we dropped back from starting the race. We were winning ahead of everyone else, so we were pretty over the moon. And gradually, the two 4-man pairs overtook us, set a different line, and this hurricane we were concerned, and we didn't fully know where the other two, the sort of pairs teams were. So we were always worried that they were overtaking us and were doing something that we weren't doing, and knowing that we were sat there, and now with a broken rudder, was a bit concerning for our race as a whole. So as I said, come the morning, we assessed the damage, and we were a bit worried. So there's about what we need to fix. So if you imagine the rudder goes in the water, and out of the water into the boat is a pole, and a sort of a clasp sits around that pole, to which the clasp is wiggled to twist the rudder, and the clasp is made out of plastic, and that broke into about 4 or 5 pieces. We didn't have a spare of that, so we had to try and fix it. And meanwhile, we were also trying to fix our seat, or fashion a new seat, because that had broke. And sadly, Dan got seasick, and we'd been brilliant the whole way through. And all of a sudden, he hopped up from downstairs and then was ill, and that was him for that day. To which was our fixing day. So I had to go down. Dan had already started the work on this rudder sort of stock. So I had to chop up a bit of wood we had for a panel, while we were sort of bobbing up and down in sort of 30 to 40 foot waves. Fashion that into 2 sort of splints to go around it. Drill 8 holes through the wood into the plastic, use araldite, mix some araldite, put in araldite, fix it all together, and then wire it together so it could dry. All whilst in a little cabin that was, I mean, I wasn't sure of the temperature, but it was pretty hot to the extent that I came out soaking wet because I was sweating so much. So talking, I think 40s, I would suggest. And finally got it fixed after 8 hours. It took 8 hours to try and drill 8 holes and chop up a bit of wood and glue it together. But finally got there. And then we had the drama of trying to fix it back on. So obviously we added on bits of wood, which meant that the bolts didn't fully fit because they were shorter bolts than with the wood on. So we had to put it on, move the rudder in the correct position. We didn't want the rudder to fall out because it could fall out and be lost. So I had to, we were in the sort of stern, the stern cabin where you would go and put the stock onto the rudder pole. We were in there for, again, another 2 or 3 hours between waves crashing over us, having to go in, attempt to screw the bolt onto the nut to find that it didn't fit. So we had to sort of put a bit of a recess into the wood to allow the nut and bolt to meet appropriately. So that was another few hours of one of us in there scraping away to a shout of "it's coming through, shut the hatch," etc., etc. So we finally got it on there, and thankfully, pretty much as soon as we got it on there, the hurricane cleared, so we could get back to rowing. So it was a kind of godsend that our breakage happened when we weren't actually moving, and we knew at that point that not many of the other boats were moving. So all in all, it wasn't a bad time to have the problem. But yeah, it was a frustrating time to have that issue.
So let's move forward now to, you got through the hurricane, and you said 12 nautical miles is when you start to see land. So let's describe the last couple of days of the road.
By this point, we'd sort of jockeyed with a couple of teams that were, after the hurricane, I think maybe 30 miles. We ended up getting pushed back 30 miles behind a team that were behind us. So we lost 30 miles. So we were itching, and we drew back the miles by working really hard, and finally got back into the lead. And we managed to extend that lead, which ultimately was about 24 hours by the tail end, so 80, 90 miles. So we were getting closer. We knew we were getting closer. It was quite exciting, and we thought we'd take a moment. Unless something tragically went wrong, we were hoping to come in. We knew we couldn't break the record, but we knew we were pretty confident at that range that we would win our pairs. So we took a moment just to enjoy the scenery and enjoy the time, and we did a bit of a tidy of the boat because we wanted to make sure it was in good order when we arrived. And as we sort of approached because throughout we lost our power, so we were going off of sort of an old school compass, not on a sort of digital one. And as we got closer to Antigua, we had to map read ourselves in. So we knew we were close to sort of seeing land, so sort of the 12 nautical miles. I remember we were chatting away, and I got a glimpse of something. I said, "Oh, Dan, I think I can." I jumped up and sort of shouted "Land ahoy!" and then Dan confirmed it, and we sort of had a big hug and a bit of a loud whoop, because obviously no one can hear you, so you can shout and scream all you want. Pretty exhilarating, some dots of light, and then as we got closer, more specks would appear. But the light was going down. We knew we were heading towards lands, rocks, coral, So we had to be sort of pretty on our game with regards to making sure we didn't hit anything. So Dan did a sterling job of sort of navigating us in, and we sort of shared that a portion of the way. And then, we got met sort of a part way out, a couple of miles out, by the sort of safety boat that sort of said how we'll arrive, which was fantastic seeing some other people. They were part of the team that were running the event. So got to see them. It was pitch black by this time. And then we went and sort of skirted around the sort of coast, or the sort of headland. And we could see sort of buildings pretty close at this point, coming into English Harbour. And it was fantastic. We got closer. We could hear more people, despite it being sort of 11 at night. You could start hearing boats that had come out to welcome us in. As you come in, there's a sort of fort to your left-hand side, to which we could hear people screaming and shouting. A boat had lit up the finish line, so we knew where we were going, and I was sort of, Dan, we're really close. Across the line, a big foghorn. One of the duty officers leave from the fort shouted our time out, which sort of sticks with me. And then we carried on a little bit further, and sort of the noise built of rumblings of people and activity. We could hear in the dark sort of noises, and again people congratulating and shouting. And then once we got a little bit away from the finish line, we sort of had a hug and lit our flares, and boats around us all did their flares, to which sort of illuminated obviously the boat, and illuminated a few of the boats around us, to which, to our surprise, was our family in one boat, which we didn't expect to see, all tucked away on this little rib, which was amazing. And then one of the other teams who got in before us all sort of illuminated in flare lights, which is great. And in we went, and we were surprised about the amount of noise and people that had come out at sort of a late night to welcome us in. We sort of got a bit closer, more excited, and we landed, hopped off, got sort of sprayed with champagne, and I say hopped off, we sort of staggered off with wobbly legs, and sort of wobbled side to side, and sort of embraced the family and the teams that got before us, who were pretty excited to see us. And it was a pretty amazing experience to arrive.
And that first step onto land, what was that like?
Pretty surreal. We sort of worked out we'd only walked maybe 2 kilometres, and that was on a 7-metre boat over 40 days. So when you're continuously moving and bobbing, stepping onto land's interesting, because you've got your sea legs. But I think the sort of impact of actually putting your foot to the ground was more significant of what it meant than the physical aspect of it. It was pretty great.
So we're gonna wrap up now. I'm sure we could talk for hours more about these stories, but describe the weeks and the sort of the days and weeks when you got into Antigua and it sort of hit you what you achieved. How did that feel? Was there elation? Was there sort of, you look back at stuff, you were a bit of sadness that you weren't on the boat? What were the feelings you were going through?
To start, we from there we went straight to a pub. Thankfully, we didn't miss last orders, and the sort of days after, being in a paradise in Antigua, which is pretty lovely, were great. But I suppose the complexity of life sort of jumps back on your shoulders within reason, in that when you're on a boat, it's just simple. It's you, another guy, and a boat, and less a bit of touching base with home. You've got nothing else to worry about. Whereas getting back onto land, the sort of the 2 years of hard work have come to a close, and you've got to look forward, which is great. But I mean, I slowly, well, I suppose I quickly came to a thought of, right, well, what next? I've enjoyed this, but it's kind of wrapped up. Let's enjoy the moment for a short period, but let's think about something else to do, or this will be forgotten about before you know it. And I suppose the excitement is the doing it, not always the reminiscing, or because it's old news for me. It's like, well, you're only as good as your last job kind of thing. So I guess it was a portion of sadness and the excitement of something else to do and looking forward.
Cool. Well, I've got one more question to ask you, but before we go on to that question, I think I just want to thank you for being a phenomenal cousin.
Likewise, can ask more.
We've had some tough family times and some incredible family times, and the one thing that we're very, very lucky is that we've always had each other's back. So first of all, a massive thank you for being an incredible cousin.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
Secondly, massive just inspiration just for the things that you said tonight around just the word about staying true, being honest that it wasn't an easy journey. The way that you describe certain things like interesting, capsizing and exciting and all that, where other people are just crapping themselves about doing stuff. So just the way that you approach things and the way that you supported and to raise £90,000 for 2 incredible charities. So just a massive acknowledgement of your brilliance, your slight stubbornness, slight stupidity, but just being a very, very inspiring human being. So thank you for being a family member, and thank you for who you are.
Well, no, thank you, Mark, and I'm pretty honoured to be in the Business Revolutions podcast. But I mean, I would sort of close with I'm flattered to be considered inspirational on it, but I don't think I am, if I'm honest, and I say that on a couple of levels, and that there were a range of people that did the row, from big guys, small guys, sort of middle-aged ladies to old men. So it's certainly not for the elite by any chance. It's for anyone that's got a bit of stubbornness, a bit of determination. So anyone can inspire, I would say. And secondly, I mean, flipping back to the charity side, the people that are in more unfortunate positions and sort of fight against those situations that are in are the inspiring people for me. And that was something that sat in the back of my head, and certainly Dan and I, that should take our hats off to those people that are without doubt more unfortunate, that are fighting every day, and they're certainly more inspirational to us than a guy that's got in a boat and is stubborn and wants to go on an adventure. But I appreciate your flattery, and likewise, Mark. It's reciprocated in our relationship as great cousins. So thank you.
Cool. I think you just touched on it, because I'm just interested. So when you and Abby are happy with your grandkids sat on your lap, and they start talking to you, and they ask you, and you said, they say, Grandpa, Opa, what's the 3 pieces of advice? What's the things that you've learned from this row that we should hold with us for the rest of our lives? What are the 3 things you say that your grandkids should hold dear to them for the rest of their lives?
Oh, you can put me on the spot. I would say maybe first one is sort of just say yes. So it started with a yes. So if sometimes you just got to take a leap of faith and say yes, and you don't know where that's going to turn you to, or what you're going to end up with, good or bad. But either way, I think good or bad, you'll learn something from it, whether that be personally or as a collective. Second is hard work. I think within reason, anything's achievable with a bit of hard work and sort of stubbornness to achieve that. And I suppose cheesily, a bit of loyalty. Whether that be loyalty to what you said or loyalty to your mates, your family. I think that pays dividends in the long run, and it forms a more enjoyable time in what you set as your goals.
That's 3 awesome pieces of advice. Embrace those opportunities that are in front of you. Put in the work to achieve your dreams, and just be loyal to the things that matter to you. I don't think if more people did that, the world would be a very, very different place. Ollie, thank you so much for joining. I cannot wait to have another pub conversation with you about your next adventure. But thanks for joining and sharing some absolutely incredible stories. And again, congrats on what you achieved.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Cheers.